Imagine opening your mailbox to a crisp white envelope that basically says, "Congratulations, you now owe 12 grand for daring to keep your neighbors dry." Yeah, that was me, Ryan Callahan, standing in my Pinecrest Meadows kitchen with the letter shaking in my hand while rain hammered the windows like it had a personal grudge. $12,000 stamped in red for unauthorized modification of common property. All because I'd spent 3 weekends and maybe $400 building a low-profile weir along the creek bend to stop the annual flood from turning our cul-de-sac into a swamp. The neighborhood looked like a war zone the next morning. Mrs. Alvarez's lawn furniture was doing the backstroke against her garage door. Little Timmy's bike was half buried in mud 3 houses down. And me? I was the villain. Victoria Langford had made sure of that. Our HOA president glided around in pastel cardigans and pearls like she was auditioning for Stepford Wives, the HOA years. She smiled at everyone, called us dear, and fined you for a garden gnome that was half an inch too tall. 2 weeks earlier, she'd strutted down the street in heels that never touched mud, spotted my little concrete and rebar weir, and whispered the magic word, unauthorized. 3 days later, a deputy was on my porch with a cease and desist that smelled like fresh printer ink and desperation. I tore the thing down myself. Every swing of the sledgehammer felt like I was smashing my own good sense. The creek laughed at me that night, roaring past where my barrier used to sit. And now this bill. $12,000. For saving the block. I didn't scream. 30 years wiring houses taught me that panic just gets you shocked. Instead, I poured coffee, stared at the flooded street, and smiled the kind of smile that makes lawyers nervous. Victoria thought she'd won. She had no idea I'd already started watching. It hadn't always been like this. 6 months ago, the annual spring storm had turned Pinecrest Meadows into a water park nobody wanted tickets for. I'd watched George next door bail out his garage with a shop vac and tears in his eyes. Mrs. Alvarez lost every tomato plant she'd babied all winter. The HOA meeting that night was pure comedy. Victoria stood at the podium in her community guardian blazer and said, with a straight face, "We must maintain aesthetic harmony above all. No unsightly structures, dears." Meanwhile, the creek was still lapping at people's front steps. I kept my mouth shut then. I'd already been labeled that guy after they fined me twice for visual clutter, once for leaving my pressure washer out overnight, once for having the wrong color mailbox flag. So when the engineer down the street, Sophia Patel, sketched a quick gravity weir on a napkin at the coffee shop and said this would cost peanuts and actually work, I just nodded. I built it at dawn on weekends when Victoria was at her spin class. Nothing flashy, just a gentle curve of rebar and poured concrete that slowed the water and sent it into the retention swale instead of our yards. It looked like a landscape feature, not Frankenstein's flood wall. When the next storm hit, the creek rose, hit my weir, spread out like it was politely asked, and the cul-de-sac stayed bone dry. Neighbors came out the next morning like they'd seen a miracle. George hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. Mrs. Alvarez baked me empanadas. Even the mailman gave me a thumbs up. Victoria noticed 2 days later. She parked her white Mercedes at the curb, binder in hand, and stared at my weir like it had personally insulted her ancestors. "Ryan, dear," she cooed, voice dripping artificial sweetener. "This simply won't do. We have covenants for a reason." I smiled back. "It kept 6 families from flooding, Victoria. Including yours." Her laugh was brittle. "Rules exist for everyone's good, even when they're inconvenient." She took photos. She made notes. She walked away, clicking those heels like a countdown. The fine letter arrived the following Tuesday. 12,000. Forged county seal at the bottom that didn't even match the real one I checked online. I almost laughed out loud at how sloppy it was. But I didn't. I started filming. Quietly. By Friday, the deputy was back. Same guy who'd ticketed me for a protruding basketball hoop last summer. He looked embarrassed, handing me the injunction. Judge signed it. He mumbled, eyes on his boots. The seal on this one was even worse. The county clerk's name was spelled wrong. I took the paper, thanked him politely, and waited until his cruiser left before I called Sophia. She showed up with a level, a tape measure, and the kind of righteous anger only a licensed civil engineer can muster. We measured everything. We filmed the weir holding back test buckets of water. We documented how the bank was actually stabilizing because of my little curve. Then we sat at my kitchen table and she said the magic words. This is textbook functional. Their paperwork is textbook bullshit. Meanwhile, Victoria was busy. She sent a group email titled, Protecting Our Investment, that somehow managed to call me a rogue element without using my name. She posted on the HOA Facebook page about aesthetic violations threatening property values. Neighbors who'd hugged me 3 days earlier started avoiding eye contact. Classic Karen magic. I kept smiling. I installed 2 trail cams, one on the old oak, one aimed at my driveway. I printed every fine she'd ever issued in the last 3 years. $250 for a political sign 1 day early, $400 for excessive holiday lights, $150 for a bird bath that was too reflective. I pinned them to my garage wall like trophies. The 72-hour clock ticked. I waited until the last possible minute, then tore the weir down while half the block watched in silence. George offered to help. I told him no. I wanted every second of footage. When the last board hit the truck bed, Victoria drove by slowly, window down, and waved like we were old friends. Thank you for cooperating, dear. We can all sleep better now. That night the sky opened like God had been holding his breath. Rain came in sheets. By midnight the creek was a monster. I stood on my porch filming as water roared past where my weir used to be, straight into George's garage, straight across Mrs. Alvarez's patio, straight through my own driveway. $12,000 worth of protection, and the street looked like a river. Victoria posted a photo at 2 a.m. See? Proper channels matter. The caption was a praying hands emoji. I almost threw my phone. Morning brought the real show. Neighbors in rubber boots surveyed the damage like shell-shocked soldiers. George's mower was floating in his living room. Mrs. Alvarez was crying over her ruined rose beds. And me? I had time-stamped video of the exact moment the water surged where my barrier would have stopped it. Sophia had already written a 6-page stamped report calling the removal gross negligence. And the trail cam? It caught Victoria's little enforcer Derek sneaking around at 3 a.m. with a shovel, trying to make my old weir site look hazardous. I didn't confront anyone. I just kept collecting. The forged seal. The deputy's reluctant testimony. The viral neighborhood group chat where people started saying the quiet part out loud. She's been doing this for years. Channel 7 showed up by lunch. Reporter Mia Thompson smelled blood in the water and went straight for the jugular. Victoria tried the pearls and smile routine on camera. We only want what's best for property values, she simpered. Behind her, George was bailing mud out of his garage in the background. Perfect television. The emergency HOA meeting was mandatory. Victoria wore her power blazer and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. She opened with a 10-minute speech about rogue elements undermining community standards. I waited in the back row with a thumb drive and a projector I'd borrowed from the library. When she finally said, "Any questions?" I stood up. The room went dead quiet. I walked to the front, plugged in the drive, and hit play. First, the before and after storm footage. My weir holding back water. Then the same creek destroying the street after she forced it gone. Gasps. Then the zoomed-in forged county seals side by side with the real one from the clerk's website. Someone actually booed. Then Derek on camera trying to plant evidence. Victoria's face went the color of old oatmeal. She tried to recover. This is clearly doctored. Sophia stood up. That's my professional stamp on the report you're looking at. I'll swear to it in court. George yelled. My mower is in my living room because of you. Mrs. Alvarez started clapping slowly. Then the whole room joined in. Victoria clutched the podium like it was the last lifeboat on the Titanic. The next 3 weeks were beautiful chaos. Channel 7 ran follow-ups every night. The county DA opened an investigation after Sophia, and I dropped off the full binder. Victoria's emails got increasingly unhinged, threatening lawsuits, claiming I was harassing her by existing. Someone keyed "gravity doesn't lie" into the side of her Mercedes. I have no idea who. She tried one last stunt, hired some goons to spray paint my garage at 2 a.m. The trail cam got that too. Deputy showed up, cuffs out, and suddenly Victoria's enforcer Derek was singing like a canary. Last week the DA held a press conference on the courthouse steps. Forgery, fraud, misuse of HOA funds. Victoria was let out in handcuffs, still wearing her pearls. She looked smaller without the podium to hide behind. We rebuilt the weir last weekend. Bigger, better, county approved. Paid for by the settlement we're about to get. The whole block showed up with beers and grills. George named his new mower Victoria's Revenge. Mrs. Alvarez planted roses right up to the edge. Pinecrest Meadows still looks perfect on the outside. But now the rules serve the people instead of one woman's ego. So tell me, was the real crime building a weir without asking permission or destroying it with lies while the neighborhood paid the price? What do you think? Who was really breaking the rules here? Drop your verdict below.